for young boys in particular, there's an adverse risk associated with the vaccine.
Rogan has said young, healthy people don't need to get vaccinated.
Rogan telling his 13 million Instagram followers that he was treated with several drugs, and he included ivermectin on the list, a drug used for livestock.
I firmly believe that if you gave me a suit of armor, I could convince Joe Rogan he traveled back in time in less than 60 seconds. And if you gave me an old-looking calendar that said 3 on it really big, I could do it in 20.
So this TikToker pointed out the fact that pretty much anybody that's in the room with Joe Rogan will agree with them. But why is that? Why does it seem that Joe Rogan is so willing to pick up on these ridiculous conspiracy theories, this anti-vax nonsense? He's always trying to make up some sort of new idea that in reality is pretty disconnected from the truth. And it all seems to be based on whatever guest Joe Rogan happens to have in the room at the time. And this is really the problem. Because to make matters even worse, there's another layer to this.
I don't think it's true that there's an increased risk of myocarditis from people catching COVID that are young versus increased risk of myocarditis from the vaccine.
No, there is. There's both.
Well, let's look that up because I don't think that's true. 12 to 17 more likely to develop myocarditis within 3 months of catching COVID at a rate of 450 cases per million infection. This compares to 67 cases of myocarditis per million at the same time following their second dose of Pfizer.
Yeah, so you're about 8 times likelier to get myocarditis from getting COVID than from getting the vaccine.
That's interesting.
Now,
that is not what I've read before. But also, it's like, even when we're reading these things, it's like, what are we getting this from?
If somebody comes up and says, hey, can you consider that maybe the world is actually flat? And, think about this. And then you have somebody else who says, no, the world is definitely round and definitely not flat. And then you have somebody like Joe Rogan look at those two ideas. Somebody like Joe Rogan, in an effort to be a reasonable person, will say, well, come on, man. You can't just say that the world is round. That's so rude. At least this person's just trying to explore new ideas. And, they're just questioning. They're just asking questions.
Of course, all the Pajama Boy fans are totally shocked that young men are flocking to non-effeminate men like Jordan Peterson, who wrote 12 Rules for Life. And they're especially furious that millions are tuning in to listen to manly men like Joe Rogan.
Toxic masculinity, that's a hilarious expression because you need to thank toxic masculinity for all the bridges, all the jets, all the rockets, all this toxic masculinity.
They take reality and they put it on the same level as pure fiction. And this is a pattern of thought you'll see among a lot of people. These people tend to be incredibly contrarian, and anytime anybody makes a claim in front of them, they'll try to debunk it. But why is this so much a problem? This is so much of a problem because unfortunately the American political system has done that with extreme right-wingers and in some cases literal Nazis, where you'll have these Joe Rogan types that are like, hey, let's just be a chill guy and drink a beer and not think about the people that he's drinking a beer with. In the case of believing in a flat earth, that's not something that's particularly harmful, but that's definitely harmful when it comes to vaccines. It's definitely harmful when it comes to platforming extreme right fascists. It's definitely harmful when you're talking about these very important issues about whether or not we should deal with a pandemic. And so when people say that they're being reasonable, what they often end up doing is just giving people a pass to be terrible in one way or another.